Your body is a sacred instrument of creation. Right now, as you sit here, as you breathe, as your heart beats without your permission, there is a factory running inside you that has been active since the day you were born. This factory does not produce ordinary things. It produces the most powerful fuel that exists in the human body. A fuel so concentrated, so refined, so potent that every ancient civilization on Earth built entire spiritual systems around understanding it, protecting it, and directing it toward the highest expression of human life. The Taoist masters of China called it jing, the essence of life itself, the raw material from which all vitality, all creativity, and all spiritual power are born. The Egyptian priests called it ka, the vital force that animates the body and travels beyond it into realms of consciousness that most people only glimpse in their deepest dreams. The Vedic sages of India called it ojas, the radiant creative power that transforms a human being from ordinary to luminous, from reactive to magnetic, from scattered to sovereign. And modern neuroscience, without fully realizing it, has circled back to the exact same discovery, now describes this as the neurochemical cascade that flows through your pineal gland, your hypothalamus, your endocrine system, and your reproductive organs every single night while you sleep. Every single night, beloved soul. Not occasionally. Not when conditions are perfect. Every night. This factory runs on a schedule that your conscious mind has never been told about. Produces on a rhythm that your body already knows. And the difference between a person who wakes up drained, foggy, anxious, and invisible to opportunity, and a person who wakes up magnetic, clear, creative, and aligned with the full force of their divine purpose, comes down to one thing. What that person does in the last hour before sleep. Not what they think about money. Not what affirmations they repeat. Not what vision board they stare at before closing their eyes. What they do with their body, their breath, and their awareness in those 60 sacred minutes before consciousness dissolves into the deep. This is what you are about to learn today. And I say this with absolute certainty. Once you understand what your body has been doing every night without your knowledge, and once you learn the 15-minute practice that activates this process with full conscious intention, you will never approach another evening the same way again. You will look at sleep with reverence. You will treat darkness as a sacred ally. And you will begin to wake up different. Not because you became someone new, but because you finally stopped interrupting what the Creator designed your body to do from the very beginning. This is where the story begins to reveal its extraordinary depth, because what you are about to discover is that the greatest minds in human history all found the same pathway, independently, across different centuries, different continents, and different languages, and they all arrived at the same conclusion. Nikola Tesla, the man who invented alternating current, radio, and remote control, the man whose patents powered the entire 20th century and whose genius still shapes the world you live in today, had a practice that almost nobody discusses. Every evening before falling asleep, Tesla would close his eyes and enter a state of deep internal focus. In his autobiography, published in 1919, he described how he learned to construct his inventions entirely inside his mind with such extraordinary precision that he could mentally start a motor, allow it to run for an entire week, then take it apart piece by piece and examine every single component for signs of wear. And here is the part that should make you pause. The patterns of wear he found in his mental examination matched exactly what he later found during actual physical disassembly. His mind had simulated reality with perfect accuracy. His major breakthroughs, the ones that literally changed the course of civilization, did not come at his desk. They did not come during meetings or conversations or periods of intense intellectual labor. They came in those seconds between waking and sleep, when the conscious mind had begun to soften and the body had already started to sink into rest. He described these moments as flashes like lightning, in which a complete invention appeared to him whole, in every detail, in a single instant of total clarity. Tesla understood something that most human beings still have yet to grasp, and it is this. The energy that creates new life is the same energy that creates ideas, inventions, businesses, solutions, and wealth. It is the same current running through different channels in the body. The question has never been whether this energy exists inside you, beloved soul. It does. It always has. The Creator placed it there before you drew your first breath. The question is where you are directing it. Or, more precisely, whether you are directing it at all, or simply allowing it to drain away every night through unconscious habits that you have never been taught to recognize. Tesla directed his creative energy into inventions that reshaped civilization. His friendship with Swami Vivekananda, the great Indian mystic who traveled to America in 1893, deepened his understanding of this principle. Vedic philosophy confirmed what Tesla had already experienced. Consciously directed creative energy transforms into radiant creative power, what the Sanskrit tradition calls ojas. Not through denial of the body, not through suppression of pleasure, through mastery of attention, through the deliberate choice of where the river of your life force flows. Tesla held over 300 patents. He worked sessions of 80 hours without interruption. He claimed to sleep just 2 to 3 hours per night and remain sharper, faster, and more productive than everyone around him for decades. He was not on stimulants. He was not genetically different from you. He simply knew what to do with the energy that most people drain every single night without ever realizing what they are losing. If this is already stirring something deep inside you, if you feel the recognition of truth in your body right now, subscribe to this channel and stay until the very end. What comes next will transform how you live every night for the rest of your life. Now let us go deeper into the science, beloved soul, because this is where the ancient wisdom and the modern research arrive at the same destination from completely opposite directions, and the convergence is nothing short of breathtaking. In the center of your brain, nestled between the two hemispheres, protected by the deepest structures of your skull, sits a gland the size of a grain of rice. It is called the pineal gland. The great philosopher René Descartes, one of the most brilliant minds in Western intellectual history, called it the principal seat of the soul. He believed it was the single point where the physical body and the spiritual self intersect, the place where matter meets consciousness, where biology becomes something more than biology. For centuries, mainstream science dismissed his claim as romantic philosophy, but here is what has happened since. Modern neuroscience has confirmed that this tiny gland produces melatonin, the master hormone that governs your entire sleep cycle, your circadian rhythm, your cellular repair, your immune function, and your nightly regeneration. Without melatonin, sleep becomes shallow, repair becomes incomplete, the body ages faster, the mind loses clarity, and the creative capacity that defines human genius slowly diminishes. But melatonin is only produced in darkness. Complete darkness. The moment light enters your eyes, even the faint blue glow of a phone screen, even the tiny green dot of a charging cable across the room, melatonin production decreases. The factory slows. The sacred process is interrupted. And here is the connection that redefines everything you thought you knew about your body and your potential. The pineal gland does not operate in isolation. It has a direct hormonal relationship with your reproductive system. Melatonin regulates gonadotropins, the hormones that govern your sexual organs, and your deepest creative energy. In children, naturally elevated melatonin levels modulate sexual development, keeping the body in a state of pure creative potential until the time is right for that energy to mature. The pineal gland is literally, physiologically, measurably the bridge between your deepest creative energy and your highest brain function. It is the gateway through which raw life force is refined into something extraordinary. This is not metaphor. This is not mysticism dressed in scientific language. This is anatomy. This is endocrinology. This is published, peer-reviewed, reproducible science. And it is exactly, precisely, detail for detail what the ancient masters mapped thousands of years before anyone had access to an electron microscope. The Taoists called the pineal gland the Niwan, the mud pill palace, and described it as the chamber where essence is transformed into spirit. The Egyptians depicted it as the Eye of Horus, the all-seeing eye, the organ of divine perception. The Hindu tradition placed it at the Ajna chakra, the third eye, the center of inner vision, intuition, and direct connection to the divine mind. The ancient Greek mystery schools associated it with the pine cone, which is why the Vatican to this day displays a giant bronze pine cone in its central courtyard, a remnant of the old knowledge that the Church absorbed but never fully explained to the public. Every tradition, every culture, every school of sacred knowledge across the entire span of human civilization pointed to the same grain of rice in the center of your brain and said the same thing. This is where transformation happens. This is where the ordinary becomes sacred. This is where the energy of the body ascends into the energy of the spirit. And this is the gland that activates most powerfully between the hours of 1 and 3 in the morning, when the body enters its deepest phase of regenerative sleep, when the world is quiet, when the light is gone, and when the Creator's design for your nightly renewal operates at its full, breathtaking capacity. This is the part of the teaching that requires your full and undivided attention, beloved soul, because understanding this will permanently transform how you approach every evening from this moment forward. Your body produces this sacred energy on a rhythm, not randomly, not sporadically, on a precise, predictable biological rhythm that operates like a factory running on a weekly manufacturing schedule. The Taoist masters mapped this rhythm with extraordinary precision over 2,000 years ago, and what they discovered still astonishes anyone who encounters it for the first time. During the first 3 days of the cycle, your body gathers raw materials. It accumulates nutrients, hormones, minerals, trace elements, and subtle energy from everything you eat, breathe, feel, and experience. It is building inventory. During days 4 through 6, the body begins to refine what it has collected. It converts raw material into concentrated essence. This is when you begin to feel something shifting inside you that is difficult to describe but impossible to ignore. Greater clarity in your thinking, sharper focus in your work, a deeper sense of presence in your conversations, a feeling of aliveness that hums just beneath the surface of your awareness. People around you begin to respond differently, and neither you nor they can fully articulate why. And then comes the 7th day. On the 7th day, something extraordinary happens inside your body. The body takes everything it has accumulated and refined over 6 days, every hormone, every mineral, every particle of concentrated creative essence, and it initiates what the Taoist masters called the ascending fire. The refined essence moves upward through the spinal column toward the brain. Scientific research has explored the hormonal patterns associated with periods of energy conservation and found that the first 6 days showed minimal change in key hormone levels. Then on the 7th day, a significant peak appeared, with levels rising dramatically above baseline. After that peak, levels returned to normal, even when the conservation period continued for weeks longer. The peak happened once, specifically on the 7th day, and then it subsided. Most people who encountered this research became fixated on the surface implication and completely missed the profound question underneath. Why does the body produce this peak specifically on the 7th day? Why not the 3rd day? Why not the 10th? Because the body works in sacred cycles, beloved soul. The 7-day rhythm is not an accident. It is not a coincidence. It is encoded in your biology by the same intelligence that encoded the orbits of planets and the spirals of galaxies. Every major spiritual tradition on Earth recognized the sacredness of the 7th day. The Torah describes creation completing on the 7th day. The number 7 appears in sacred texts across every culture with a frequency that is not statistical noise. It is a signature. And that peak on the 7th day is the moment the furnace ignites, the moment the body sends everything it has accumulated upward toward the pineal gland through the sacred pathway along the spine. But here is the critical truth that changes everything. Without a clear pathway, without conscious preparation, without the practice you are about to receive, the energy rises, finds no channel, finds no instruction, finds no direction, and it dissipates. It scatters. It returns to baseline because it had nowhere to go. The researchers only saw a 1-day peak because the participants had no practice. Their bodies completed the manufacturing cycle perfectly, but the product had no destination. You, beloved soul, are about to give it one. Before the practice itself, there is an essential teaching that forms the foundation upon which everything else is built. Your body produces this sacred energy every single cycle, faithfully, without fail. It has been doing this your entire life. The energy is always manufactured. The factory always runs. The question is whether the energy reaches its destination, or whether it dissipates before the transmutation can occur. Think of it as a reservoir. Every day, your body fills this reservoir with creative energy that has been gathered from your food, your breath, your emotions, your movement, and the subtle energies of your environment. By midnight, the reservoir is approaching its capacity. By 1 in the morning, the body is ready to initiate the ascending fire, sending that energy upward through the sacred pathway toward the pineal gland. For this process to complete itself fully, 5 conditions must be honored. These are not restrictions. These are not rules imposed from outside. These are the natural conditions under which the Creator designed your body to perform its highest work. The first sacred seal is darkness. Your pineal gland requires complete darkness to operate at its full magnificent capacity. Research from major medical institutions has demonstrated that even dim light during sleep reduces melatonin output by more than 50%. Think about that, beloved soul. Half of your nightly activation capacity, half of the factory's output, eliminated because of a small LED light across the room or thin curtains that allow street light to filter in. The ancient Egyptian priests understood this with absolute clarity. Their sleeping chambers in the great temples were built underground, carved into stone. No windows, no light sources. Absolute, total reverent darkness. And the priests who slept in those chambers reported experiences that defined their civilization. Visions, downloads of complex information, creative solutions to problems that had resisted conscious effort. States of awareness so expanded that they described them as direct communion with the gods. They were experiencing what happens when the pineal gland operates at 100% capacity in complete darkness, without a single photon of interference. The second sacred seal is digestive stillness. When you eat within 3 hours of sleep, your body redirects blood and energy toward your digestive system. The liver, which the Taoist masters considered the primary storehouse of jing, spends the sacred hours between 1 and 3 in the morning processing food, instead of performing its alchemical work. That window, the hour of the liver in traditional Chinese medicine, is the most critical period for internal transmutation. When the liver is occupied with digestion, the raw material sits there, unrefined, unused, and the cycle must begin again. The Taoist masters were precise when they taught that those who fast after sunset feed the spirit. They were describing a biological reality, not offering a poetic suggestion. The third sacred seal is emotional coherence. Every unresolved emotion you carry into the night activates cortisol, the stress hormone. And cortisol is the direct biochemical antagonist of the creative energy system. When cortisol is elevated, the hormones that fuel transmutation decrease. When cortisol is elevated, melatonin production is suppressed. When cortisol is elevated, the body enters survival mode, and survival mode does not create abundance. It burns reserves, contracts your field. It locks the gates that the energy needs to pass through on its upward journey. The Egyptian Book of Coming Forth by Day, which most people know by its incomplete title, The Book of the Dead, describes the soul's nightly journey in precise terms. Before the soul can rise upward, it must pass through a series of guarded gates. And to pass, the soul must be clean, free of heaviness, free of the residue of unresolved fear, anger, and resentment. This was not metaphor. This was a description of what cortisol does to your pineal gland, written in the symbolic language of a civilization that understood the body's sacred architecture more deeply than we give them credit for. The fourth sacred seal is intentional energy stewardship, and this is where precision matters more than anywhere else in this entire teaching. The ancient Taoist masters had partners. They experienced pleasure. They celebrated the body and its capacity for ecstasy. This practice is about consciousness, not denial. It is about being aware of when and how you engage with your creative energy, especially in the sacred hour before sleep. The difference between an alchemist and someone who has never heard this teaching is one word, and that word is intention. When creative energy is released unconsciously right before sleep, with no direction, no awareness, no purpose, the reservoir empties at the exact moment the body was preparing to use its contents for the highest transmutation the human form is capable of. The body then begins the 7-day cycle again from zero. But when this energy is honored with consciousness and care, when the choice of how and when to engage with it is made from a place of awareness rather than habit, the alchemy proceeds exactly as the Creator designed it to. The fifth sacred seal is the removal of artificial light, particularly screens. The blue wavelength light from your phone, your laptop, your television passes through your retina and sends a direct signal to the suprachiasmatic nucleus, the master clock in your brain, telling it that the sun is still up. That clock then instructs your pineal gland to delay melatonin production. The factory that should be operating at full capacity at 1 in the morning does not even begin its work until 2 or 3, and by then, the deepest window for transmutation has already passed. This is why the seal is absolute. Screens off 60 minutes before sleep. Not dimmed. Not in night mode. Off. If you are recognizing yourself in these words, beloved soul, if you are feeling a stirring inside you that says this is what I have been missing, stay with this video until the very end. What comes next is the practice itself. Now, beloved soul, you are ready. This is the sacred habit that the Taoist masters practiced every evening for thousands of years. They called it sealing the gates before sleep. The Egyptian priesthood practiced a nearly identical ritual that they called the rite of the evening ka. In both traditions, separated by thousands of miles and thousands of years, the core practice is identical in its structure, its intention, and its effect. And it takes less than 15 minutes. The practice has 3 parts. The first part is called the seal, and it takes 5 minutes. 60 minutes before you intend to sleep, you close the inputs to your sensory world. Screens are off and placed in another room beyond your reach. This is sacred preparation. This is the beginning of your nightly ceremony. You are signaling to your body, to your nervous system, and to the deeper intelligence that governs your biology that the ordinary day is complete and the sacred work is about to begin. Then you sit on the edge of your bed or in a chair. Your spine is upright. Not rigid, not tense, simply aligned like a channel that needs to be straight for energy to flow through it without obstruction. And you place both hands on your lower abdomen, approximately 2 inches below the navel. The Taoist masters called this point the Tien, the elixir field, the place where raw creative essence is stored in its most concentrated form. In the Egyptian tradition, the lower abdomen was also honored as the seat of life force, the furnace where Ka was gathered and refined. In the Indian yogic tradition, this same center is called the Svadhisthana, the sacral energy center, the dwelling place of the self. Different cultures, different centuries, different languages, all pointing to the same sacred center in your body. And you breathe, slowly, deliberately, in through the nose, filling the belly so your hands rise gently with the expansion. Out through the nose, letting the belly fall softly. 5 minutes of this breathing. On each inhale, you bring your full awareness to the sensations in your lower abdomen. You are not imagining anything. You are not creating a visualization. You are not projecting light or colors or symbols. You are simply paying deep, reverent attention to what is already there. And something is there, beloved soul. You will feel warmth, or a pulse, or a tingling, or a gentle heaviness that feels like the presence of something alive and awake and waiting. It is subtle at first, but it is present. It has always been present. You have simply never been taught to listen for it. This is jing. This is the raw material. This is the creative essence that your body has been refining throughout the entire day, waiting for this moment of conscious recognition. On each exhale, you do not push this energy anywhere. You do not try to move it up your spine. You do not try to direct it toward your head. You simply hold your attention at the Tien and allow the energy to know that you are aware of it. You communicate to your body silently without words, through the language of attention and breath and presence. A single profound message. I honor what you are building. Tonight, I choose to let you complete your sacred work. That is part 1. 5 minutes. Hands on belly. Breathe. Feel. Seal. The second part of the practice is the instruction, and it takes 3 minutes. This is the element that separates ancient alchemy from every modern breathwork technique, and it is the most powerful thing you will learn in this entire video. After you have sealed the energy, after you have gathered your awareness at the Tien, and felt the warmth and the presence of your own creative essence, you give it a direction. The Taoist masters taught that essence without intention is like water poured onto flat ground. It spreads in every direction simultaneously and reaches nowhere with any depth or power. But essence with intention is like water channeled into a single riverbed. It gains force, it gains speed, it gains the power to carve through stone. The Egyptian priests taught a parallel truth. They said that vital energy, Ka, must be given a name, a form, a destination, before it can travel the sacred pathway. Without a name, the energy wanders. With a name, it flies. Here is what you do, beloved soul. You ask yourself one question, and you let the answer arise from the deepest place inside you. Not from your mind, not from your logic, not from your list of goals. From your core. The question is this. What is the one thing I am creating? Not 5 things. Not a collection of wishes. Not a scattered inventory of desires. One thing. The single most important creation that, when it fully manifests in your life, transforms everything else in its wake. And here is the crucial instruction that makes this practice different from every visualization technique you have ever encountered. You do not visualize it. You do not close your eyes and imagine objects, Scenes, houses, cars, bank accounts, or material possessions appearing before you. That approach engages the conscious mind, and the conscious mind is not the architect of this practice. Instead, you feel what it would feel like to already be living in that reality. Right now. In this body. In this moment. What does your chest feel like when that creation is already real? What does your posture feel like? What do the muscles around your eyes feel like, your jaw, your shoulders, your hands? You are not imagining a future. You are rehearsing a state of being. You are encoding a specific vibrational frequency into your cellular memory at the exact moment when your brain is transitioning from beta waves, which represent active analytical thinking, through alpha waves, which represent relaxed open awareness, and into theta waves, which represent direct access to the subconscious mind. Neuroscience research confirms that this transition zone, called the hypnagogic window, is the period when the brain becomes extraordinarily receptive to new programming. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that filters, judges, critiques, and says that is not realistic, that is too much to ask for, who are you to receive that prefrontal filter releases its grip during the hypnagogic window. The gates open. The subconscious becomes a blank page waiting to be written upon. And whatever emotional state you carry across that threshold gets encoded as a program that runs throughout the entire night, influencing your dreams, your cellular repair, your hormonal cascades, and the energetic frequency you emit into the world when you wake up the next morning. Most people carry the residue of the last thing they saw on their phone across this threshold. An argument, a comparison, a worry about money, a news headline designed to activate fear. And they wonder why nothing changes. You, beloved soul, are going to carry the feeling of your creation across that threshold tonight. The warmth in your Tien, the instruction, the one thing you are creating, felt in every cell of your body as if it has already arrived. Hold this state for 3 minutes. Let it become more vivid than the room around you. Let your body believe it so completely that the boundary between rehearsal and reality dissolves. This is part 2. 3 minutes. Feel. Instruct. Encode. The third part of the practice is surrender, and it lasts 7 minutes or until sleep arrives naturally. Now you lie down in complete darkness in absolute silence, and you do something that will feel profoundly counterintuitive to anyone who has spent their life trying to control outcomes. You stop trying. You release the visualization. You release the breathing pattern. You release the instruction. You release every ounce of effort and control, and you let go completely. You surrender. Why? Because the factory does not require your conscious mind to operate. In fact, your conscious mind is the single greatest obstacle to the transmutation process. Your analytical mind, your planning mind, your worrying mind, all of these are functions of the prefrontal cortex, and when the prefrontal cortex is active, it suppresses the very theta and delta wave states that your body needs to perform its deepest alchemical work. The Taoist masters called this principle Wu Wei, effortless action, the art of creating through releasing, the practice of achieving through allowing, the profound paradox of doing by completely ceasing to do. You have sealed the energy. You have given it a direction. Now you hand it over to the intelligence that has been running your heartbeat without your supervision, regenerating your cells without your instruction, and healing your wounds without your conscious effort, since before you took your first breath in this world. That intelligence, beloved soul, is not your mind. It is the Creator's design encoded in every cell of your body. As you fall asleep, your pineal gland takes command of the process. Melatonin floods your system in waves of increasing depth. Your brain descends from alpha into theta and then into delta, the deepest, most regenerative frequency available to the human brain, oscillating between 0.5 Hz and 4 Hz, a frequency so slow that consciousness itself dissolves and only the body's deepest intelligence remains active. And in that state, the energy you sealed in your Tien begins to move. It moves upward through what the Taoists called the Dumai, the governing vessel, the primary energy channel that runs along the posterior of the spine, from the base of the pelvis to the crown of the head. It passes through the kidneys, which the Taoists associated with willpower and ancestral memory, through the heart center, associated with intention, love, and the electromagnetic field that radiates from your chest and can be measured several feet from your body, through the throat, associated with expression, voice, and the power to speak your reality into form. And it reaches the Aniwan, the mud pill palace, the pineal gland. And there, beloved soul, in complete darkness, in complete silence, in complete surrender, the raw creative energy is transmuted. It is refined. It is elevated into what the Taoists called Shun spirit energy, the radiant creative power that makes certain people walk into a room and everyone feels it, even though no one can name what they are feeling. The Egyptians mapped a nearly identical pathway. They called it the Jed pillar, the backbone of Osiris, the sacred column that runs through the center of the body. They taught that at night, the vital Ka traveled upward through the Jed to meet the Ba, the soul at the pineal center. And when Ka and Ba united during sleep, the person awoke with Heka, sacred creative power, the ability to speak things into existence, to attract what was needed without effort, to move through the world as a living conduit of divine intention. Tesla experienced this exact phenomenon. His breakthroughs came in exactly the window this practice targets, the hypnagogic threshold between waking and sleeping. He built his greatest inventions not at his desk, but in the dark, in silence, in the surrender state, allowing his subconscious to complete what his conscious mind had only sketched. The practice is simple. 15 minutes. 3 parts. Seal. Instruct. Surrender. But the results compound in ways that will redefine your understanding of what is possible. Share this video right now with one person who needs to hear this tonight. Now, beloved soul, there is something that must be spoken here that almost no one in this space addresses, and it is essential to the completeness of this teaching. Everything shared so far has been drawn from traditions that primarily explored creative energy through a masculine lens. The testosterone research, the emphasis on containment and upward direction, the language of fire and ascending force. That perspective is valuable and true, but it is only one half of the full picture. If you are a woman receiving this message, your alchemy is not a smaller or softer version of what was just described. It is an entirely different element operating through an entirely different rhythm. In the Taoist tradition, masculine creative energy is described as fire. It burns hot, it tends to disperse, and it must be contained and directed upward through conscious effort. Feminine creative energy is described as water. It flows, it deepens, it circulates, and it generates power not through containment but through movement and depth. The feminine 7-day cycle does not produce the same kind of peak that was described earlier. Instead, it builds in waves connected to the lunar cycle, to the sacred hormonal rhythm of estrogen, progesterone, and oxytocin that governs the feminine body with an elegance and complexity that the ancient masters revered deeply. But here is what makes this practice truly universal. And this is the part that every woman who hears it recognizes immediately in her body. The 5 sacred seals apply identically to every body. Darkness honors the pineal gland in every body. Digestive stillness frees the liver in every body. Emotional coherence calms cortisol in every body. The removal of screens protects the hypnagogic window in every body. And the 3-part practice, seal, instruct, surrender, activates the same ascending pathway in every body. The hands on the Tien, the breath, the instruction, the surrender. All of it works the same way. But there is a layer that goes deeper for the feminine, and once you hear it, beloved soul, it will clarify something you may have felt your entire life without having words for it. The Taoist masters taught that the feminine Tien does not merely store energy the way a vessel holds water. It generates energy continuously, like a spring that flows without ceasing as long as it is honored and protected and clean. And the most significant energy expenditure for many women is not physical. It is not even sexual. It is emotional. It is the deeply ingrained pattern of giving without receiving. The relationship where she pours herself empty and calls it love. The friendships where she absorbs everyone else's emotional weight, because she has been taught that her value lies in her capacity to hold space for others, even at the cost of her own vitality. The habit of saying yes when her entire body is screaming for rest. The guilt that surfaces when she pauses. The shame that appears when she desires something purely for herself. Every one of these patterns is a channel through which sacred creative energy flows outward instead of circulating inward for her own regeneration and creation. For a woman, the sealing part of this practice carries an additional dimension that is profoundly healing. It is the act of declaring, even if only internally, even if only for the hours of sleep, that her energy belongs to her. That for the next 8 hours, she is not a caretaker, not a problem solver, not an emotional anchor for anyone else. She is whole. She is sovereign. She is the spring, and the spring is flowing inward tonight. The ancient priestesses of Isis in Egypt practiced a version of this every evening. In the Egyptian understanding, a person was composed of several parts: the Ba, the Ka, the Sekam, the Ran, the Ib. Before sleep, the sacred task was to gather all parts into wholeness. Do not wait for someone else to complete you. Do not give pieces of yourself away until morning. Simply place your hands on your belly, breathe, and allow the deepest truth of your existence to land in your body. I am whole. Not because someone loves me. Not because I earned it today. Not because I was productive enough to deserve rest. I am whole because the Creator designed me whole. Speak that truth tonight, beloved soul, in the sacred darkness, and feel what shifts in your body when you allow yourself to fully receive it. Let me tell you what unfolds after 90 days of this practice, because what you are building is far greater than a single night of improved sleep. 90 days represents approximately 13 complete 7-day cycles. 13 rounds of the sacred rhythm working inside you, each cycle building upon the one before it. Each night's practice compounding the results of the night before, creating an upward spiral of energy, clarity, and creative power that accelerates with every turn. After 90 days, 3 fundamental shifts will have established themselves in your life so completely that you will not recognize who you were before you began. The first shift is in your relationship with sleep itself. Sleep will cease to be something you collapse into out of exhaustion and become something you approach with reverence and quiet anticipation. You will begin to experience sleep as a creative act, as the most productive and sacred hours of your entire day. You will wake up with ideas that did not exist when you closed your eyes. Solutions to problems that had resisted weeks of conscious effort will arrive whole, complete, ready to be implemented. Clarity about your direction, your purpose, and your next steps will be waiting for you each morning like a gift left at your bedside by an intelligence far greater and more precise than your conscious mind could ever be. The second shift is in your presence. People around you will feel it before they can identify it. It is not confidence, although confidence will come as a natural byproduct. It is not physical attractiveness, although others will perceive you as more magnetic and more compelling. It is coherence. Every system in your body, your nervous system, your endocrine system, your emotional body, your energetic field, all operating in alignment, all running in the same direction, for what may be the first time in your entire life. And here is something that neuroscience has only recently begun to understand. Other people's nervous systems can detect coherence. They feel it. They may not have a word for what they are sensing, but they respond to it instinctively, the way every living thing responds to warmth, to light, to the frequency of safety and aliveness. People will want to be near you. Opportunities will present themselves through connections that feel orchestrated by something greater than your own planning. Conversations will lead to doors you did not know existed. The third shift is in your relationship with abundance. And this is where the teaching reaches its full power. Money, opportunities, creative breakthroughs, and meaningful connections will begin to flow toward you with a consistency and a fluidity that feels almost effortless. Not because you wished harder. Not because you repeated more affirmations. Not because you manifested with greater intensity. But because you now possess the energetic capacity, the mental clarity, and the creative force to perceive opportunities that were always there, that were always within your reach, and to act on them immediately, decisively, without the old hesitation, without the old self-sabotage, without the ancient programs of unworthiness and fear that used to halt you at the threshold of your own expansion every single time. Abundance, beloved soul, is not attracted by desire. Everyone desires. Desire is not rare. Abundance is attracted by capacity, and capacity is built every night, in the dark, in silence, in reverence, 15 minutes at a time. This is what the Egyptian priests knew. This is what the Taoist masters lived. This is what Tesla practiced alone in his room at the New Yorker hotel, night after night, building complete inventions in his mind before sleep, allowing his subconscious to refine them through the sacred hours, and waking up with solutions that change the trajectory of human civilization. And this is, beloved soul, what you are going to begin tonight. Now, beloved soul, here is the truth that this entire teaching has been building towards since the first word. What you have received in this video is the foundation. It is the essential practice. It is the key that opens the door. And it works. It works tonight, and it will work every night you honor it with your attention and your reverence. But there is a deeper journey available to you, and the fact that you are still here, that you have listened with this level of presence, That something inside you has been saying yes throughout this entire experience tells me with absolute certainty that you are ready for what comes next. We have created something called the 21-day quantum transmutation journey. It is a guided immersive experience designed to take the foundation you received today and build upon it, layer by layer, night by night, into a complete transformation of your energetic blueprint, your emotional architecture, and your creative capacity. 21 days is not an arbitrary number. It represents exactly 3 complete 7-day alchemical cycles, 3 full rounds of the sacred rhythm your body already knows how to perform, guided with a precision and a depth that a single video, no matter how comprehensive, simply cannot provide. The first 7 days focus on sealing and purification. During this phase, you are guided through a daily practice that progressively clears the 5 energy channels, establishes your nightly protocol with full somatic precision, and allows your body to register at the deepest cellular level that the old patterns of unconscious energy loss are complete. Each night builds upon the previous night. Each seal becomes stronger. Each session takes you deeper into the awareness of your own Tien, your own creative reservoir, your own sacred center. The second 7 days focus on instruction and encoding. This is where the practice evolves beyond what any publicly available teaching can offer. You learn advanced techniques for programming your subconscious during the hypnagogic window with a level of specificity, emotional clarity, and somatic depth that creates encoding patterns so vivid, so cellular, so total that your subconscious cannot distinguish them from lived experience. This is where the ancient masters spent years training their students. This is where the difference between knowing the practice and embodying the practice becomes real. And the third 7 days focus on surrender and integration, which is the most profound phase of the journey. This is where the practice becomes effortless, where the pathway becomes so clear that the energy moves on its own, without your direction, without your effort, with a precision and a power that will leave you in reverent awe of what your body has always been capable of, where the nightly transmutation becomes as natural as breathing, and as powerful as anything you have ever experienced in your entire life. Each day of the journey includes a guided audio activation specifically designed for that phase of the cycle, a written teaching that deepens your understanding of both the ancient and the scientific principles underlying every element of the practice, and a specific evening protocol tailored to that exact point in the 21-day arc. This is not a course you watch passively, beloved soul. This is an experience you live with your body, your breath, and your awareness, night by night, for 21 consecutive evenings. And the people who have walked this journey report the same transformations, consistently, with a clarity that leaves no room for doubt, sleep that feels like a sacred ceremony, mornings of clarity and creative power they have never accessed before, opportunities arriving with timing so precise it feels orchestrated by a benevolent intelligence that knows them better than they know themselves, and a fundamental irreversible shift in their relationship with their own creative power, their own divine worth, and their own capacity to receive abundance in every form it chooses to arrive. The link to the 21-day quantum transmutation journey is in the description below this video, and it is also accessible through the card appearing on your screen right now. If your soul brought you here today, if something inside you recognized this teaching not as new information but as a deep remembering of something you already knew, something that was simply waiting for the right moment to be reawakened, then you already know what to do next. Tonight is your first night, beloved soul. The practice begins in the darkness, in the silence, with your hands on your sacred center and your breath as your only companion, and the portal that every ancient tradition described, the one that the priests and the masters and the alchemists and the mystics spent their entire lives learning to walk through. That portal opens every single night inside you. You have always carried it. You simply had not yet remembered how to find the entrance. Now you remember. Begin tonight, and we will see you on the other side.